Hey everyone, I'm Victor Dwyer with Pirawna, and this is the Failures Podcast, where we get the latest founders, the latest experts in industry, and we go through a little bit about their failures, a little bit about the wins, and how they overcame those. And today we have Jimmy on. Jimmy is everything Walmart, everything related to e-com, and so we had a super awesome conversation. I wanted him to bring on the podcast, and he's going to go a little bit intro about himself, and then we'll dive into a little bit about some maybe philosophy in there about humans and how businesses interact, and then a little bit about Walmart. What are the best practices in Walmart? So, well, let's dive right into it. Jimmy, thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, you bet. Glad to be here and excited to dig into all things ecom.
Let's do it. Yeah, give us a little intro about how you got started into this and kind of like how did you get into this whole mess of e-commerce?
Yeah. First platform was eBay. Started selling random camera equipment on eBay in 2008. Thought it was interesting. Internet was cool. Dial up was just fantastic. And I had uh, at the time when I was going to college had started dating a girl who's now my wife, and she was big into cameras. And so naturally, I started to learn a little bit about camera equipment, camera lenses, and all that kind of stuff. And one of the easiest places to sell it was actually on Amazon. And I found this would have been in 2010 that you could sell like a Canon lens or a Fuji lens on Amazon, and it would actually like sell. And it was just me, random person out of their college dorm selling a camera lens right next to Fuji. And so that was how I got into it. And it's been a wild ride. Obviously, e-commerce has evolved a pretty significant amount since then. But that was kind of
Yeah.
what initially got me interested. And I've always loved technology and transitioned to basically start my career with Colgate and working with Walmart stores. And my biggest frustration in the process was just how intangible the process was.
Yeah.
That you could walk a store and like see one of your decisions or something that you did, and it kind of like brought it to life a little bit. But there was just something about a PDP and like quick type, flat file upload to Seller Central, and then like boom, like you could just so quickly change and test and get feedback. And that's
Yeah.
really what kind of hinged me deeper into e-commerce, was just the feedback loop is so fast. And
True.
that's kind of what has kept me excited about it, and what I love
Mhm.
about the industry just as a whole is
Yeah.
that feedback loop.
I'm really religious about A/B testing, so that's why I got into marketing in the first place, is
Mm,
understanding the psychology of why humans pick certain things. For example, if I give you an ad with a blue banner or an ad with an orange banner, you're going to click the orange banner, and that's always been really fascinating to me. And you're totally
yeah,
right. Like I've always been in the e-com world, so I've never really appreciated the amount of feedback and how quickly I get it, but it's very standard to do an A/B test in a 1 week or 2 weeks because those are usually like enough time. But if you're talking
yeah,
about real world scenarios, like you might be doing that for months. Like think about like a
yeah,
Kroger's or a Walmart or whatever it may be. That takes months for them to
yeah.
test certain things and see if it's working, and you really don't even know. Like they might put a sign in front.
You-
You have no idea what the
yeah,
ROI on that sign is.
yeah.
You have no clue.
It's
So yeah,
That's the challenging part of it. Is it's like, Walmart resets probably a majority of their modulars, we'll call it once a year. And so it's
yeah,
like, man, you put an assortment on the shelf, and like you're just you got 12 months to prove your presence or get out. But it's like, whoa, like, you can only do so much, and that's just such a long feedback loop.
it
And
is.
obviously, there's changes you can make and stuff in between. But I just love that it's quick.
Yeah.
And the data is just way more numerous about the actual shopper and the experience as a whole. So that's kind of what got me into it, and why I've really focused. And we're in the process of expanding that e-commerce. There is pure play e-commerce, but it's like, at the end of the day, it's a medium to reach a shopper with a product or a service or whatever it may be. And now shoppers want stuff in a lot of different mediums. And so
Yeah.
it's like, okay, so what does it look like? whether you call it omni-channel or just, multi-channel fulfillment, whatever you want to call it, where shoppers are buying product and receiving product from different avenues.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the evolution of where e-commerce is going. And so that's where I spend a lot of my time now, is kind of figuring out where that goes.
That's amazing. And when it came to
That's,
like really figuring out some failures and wins to get up to this point when it came to building your business, what are some failures or weaknesses that you necessarily found in yourself that made it where it's like, aha, that's what led me to this? And how did you kind of like go around that? For example, like I realized that I'm not a good manager. Like when it comes to managing
mhm.
people and things like that, I'm not a good operator when it comes to managing people. I am good about communicating to people and saying like these are the things, but when it comes to like micromanaging and things like that, I'd rather just entrust them with the task rather than doing
Yeah.
things. So that was a weakness I found in myself. So I'd love to see if you found any either weaknesses or failures along the way that was very insightful for you.
Yeah. I forgot to caveat. I sit on a medicine ball, and I've found that like I tend to bounce when I'm on calls, and if you don't tell people like he's sitting on a medicine ball, then they're like, "What's going on with this guy?"
That is
So
awesome. I
I
love it.
need a disclaimer. If you hear me bouncing, that's what's going on. Yeah, I think it's funny that you say that, because there's one of the things I think that really kind of came to head for me was probably when I started my role at OneStone 4 years ago.
Mhm.
And it was, I don't want to say I bordered on the lines of arrogance, but I I had really strong opinions about things, which I
Mhm.
love. I actually really do love strongly opinionated people.
Yeah.
But as I moved more into a leadership seat and just kind of leading some aspects of the business, what I found is that as a leader, you need to have a voice that is authoritative and that does lead with clarity. But
Yeah.
there's a really fine balance between listening and understanding as a leader, than steamrolling and just coming into a call and then it's like, all right, well, now that he's here, this whole thing's going to hell. And so I feel like that happened a lot early on, and that's just, I honestly, I would chalk it up as a failure in my part of just learning and realizing that not everybody works the same way. Some people digest things internally and may need some time. Some folks don't have a lot of great opinions at the start, but then over time they develop them. And so that's just been an aspect that I feel like I have had a pretty strong failure with in the past, and is something that I hope to lead with better throughout the rest of my career, is continuing to come in and listen first and understand and seek to understand first information, and not having your opinion be heard by how loud it is, but more so by the thoughtfulness behind it or the strategicness behind it or whatever it may be.
A big
But
game
that's,
changer.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry. A big game changer for me in my business was realizing that we have filters. So when we're
Mhm.
babies, like we say, "Oh, you're fat." Like we say these things because we don't have
Yeah.
filters yet. We haven't learned them. So it's like they say, like obviously say, "Don't say that." Like that's not a horrible thing to say, but it's like they don't have filters yet, so it's understandable. But as we grow and get older and older, we have these filters that we build up. So for example,
Yeah.
if I build out this amazing art piece and I say, Jimmy, look at this art piece. I worked so hard on it. Let me know what your thoughts are. Your filter is gonna say, "Oh, Victor, it looks great," and then like you're gonna think it's really horrible. But if I come to you and say, "Hey, I am working on my art skills and I know it sucks right now, but I'm trying to get better. Can you let me know what I can do
Mm,
better on this?" I just completely stripped away that filter, and now you're gonna give me honest feedback. And
yeah.
I do that within the business world, saying, "Hey, I suck at a lot of things. Tell me what I suck at. Like, let's figure it out, and let's just go on from there." And from
Yeah.
there, they're super honest with me, and they're like, "Wow, I can be really honest with this guy." And they would come to
Yeah.
me about even subjects that have nothing to do with what I even what I suck about. They're honest with me in general, saying, "Hey, Victor, I
Yeah.
don't like how this person talked to me." Okay, boom, let's talk about it. And it opens up these filters that we have rather than keeping it bundled inside and where it's like it's strapped in this ball where eventually it explodes. Like I
Hmm.
need to remove these filters so that way they communicate. And
Yeah.
that's been a huge game changer for me when I owned my
Mhm.
business, was have like removing those filters from people.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I just not everybody works the same. Not, everyone has different backgrounds, and you just never know what you're working with. There's it's a little bit of a melting pot in that sense. And it came to head for me when I just realized that some of the people that I was managing at the time weren't excelling. And it's like, wait, this is never going to work if like all I'm going to have to do is more work. And it's like the whole point of having a team is that everybody works. And it's like if you have one person that's actually bringing down the team because of their leadership, it's a really problematic thing for you to be able to scale your actual team.
Yeah.
And that was where it really came to head for me, was just like, man, I'm more in the way than I am actually helping as far as scale goes. And so things needed to change. And that's
Can you go into like what you changed there? So like were you micromanaging, or like what how did you take that scenario that you just described and how did you end up making that a success? Like what
yeah.
did you kind of do there?
Two big things come to mind. Was kind of like on the offensive and on the defensive. On the defensive side for me was honestly like was personal reflection and personal change, and in starting to spend more time reflecting on, hey, what did I do in that call, even to the point of like recording calls and listening back through them and saying like, oh wow, like actually when I sit and listen to myself from a third party perspective, like I don't even like how I sounded on that.
Yeah.
And just taking the time, to like actually listen and infer what you are doing, how you are sounding, how you are listening. It's like everybody thinks they're a good listener, but like
Yeah.
record a Zoom call for 30 minutes and then like listen to yourself and actually like, wait, how much did I speak? And it's like maybe you aren't a good listener, but you think you are. And
Yeah.
so that was a big part of it, was offensive defensively saying, hey, I got to take a second and really look at what I'm doing, and started reading books and trying to figure out, hey, how can I get better in this area? I think this is a weakness of mine. Um, on the offensive side was one that's actually kind of a little bit more interesting. Was uh, albeit that was how I was. One of the things that helped, I think, was forcing better feedback loops within our team.
Yeah.
And so what I was actually seeking, I think a lot of the time, was someone to challenge my opinion, or to take what I said and say, hey, actually, I disagree. I want this, or whatever it may be. But all I actually was really looking for was just feedback loops,
Yeah.
and saying, hey, this is my opinion. What's your opinion? But then when no one else shares their opinion, it just looks like I'm the loudest voice in the room. And so one of the things that I think actually was offensively changed help was like, hey, how do we build a better culture of feedback? And it's like everyone has an equal seat at the table. Everyone has an equal voice at the table. And my opinion's my opinion, but you can absolutely voice your opinion. And if anything, I like expect everyone to voice their opinion, whether it's,
Mhm.
hey, I agree with you, or no, I think about it a little bit different. This is what I think. Just because I think when you get all those opinions in a room, you actually end up with a better product, service, or whatever it
Mhm.
may be, than operating in kind of a silo of a one-man show.
And I think
So
that
those
comes
are the
down to,
two.
yeah, yeah, that's great. And I think that comes down to a little bit of communication.
Yeah.
Like, and I think it comes down to like so I have the same problem as you, like when it comes to like I speak with utter confidence. Like no matter what I'm talking about, like it's gonna sound like this is it, this is how it
This is
goes.
it.
There's nothing you can do to say that or
I
to,
shouldn't even
to
try. I
divert
should
from what
just,
my voice
yep.
says. And
Yeah.
it's my natural voice, so I can't change it. Like I don't talk like this. Like it makes it
Yeah.
where I talk with utter confidence, and it makes it where a lot of people I have that same issue. So with a big thing that I've done was like, hey, like like at the end of when I'm talking, I'll
Mm.
say like, hey, if you disagree about this, I just love to get your thoughts. If you disagree about it, if you think it's wrong, and if, like I use this phrase all the time, like if at the very end you can say, hey, like Victor, you're totally wrong, no matter what, and I always say that. And that way it opens up the conversation within their mind saying, okay, maybe I can tell Victor he's wrong and things like
Mm.
that. Um, and it usually makes them agree with me more, unfortunately, but it opens up the avenue to them to say, hey, I
Yeah.
can possibly disagree with this person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's a great call out. I think that it levels the playing field and at least opens the door. I've also just started, I don't know if I'm like advocating for it, but I just started calling on people. What do you
yeah.
think? What do you think? Hey, I haven't heard anything from you. What do you think? And it's just funny because everybody almost always, if you ask them, will give you their opinion. But some
Huh.
folks just won't volunteer. Like they're just not the kind of people that want to step up and volunteer. They're like, I don't have anything to say, or what I have to say isn't important, or whatever it may be. But if you ask them and say, hey, can you share your opinion? 9 times out of 10, they do. And
Yeah.
it makes everybody better. And that was one of the things. I had a guy on my team who was probably a little bit more on the quiet side. But every time I would ask him, hey, what do you think on this? It was like, oh my gosh, that's what we need to do. And not my opinion. We need to do what you're saying. And so, yeah, that's one of the things I feel like that has helped.
It does also make them more invested in the project when you ask for their
Mm-hmm.
opinion, because they
Mm-hmm.
feel like a piece of it is theirs. Like
Yeah.
that's what I've realized is a big thing as well. When people come in and you ask either their opinion or whatever it may be, and it's like I always said, hey, if you see any improvements within the company as a whole, like I would say, hey, just let me know and let's do them. And those people that I would take those improvements or whatever it may be, then they would be a lot more invested in the company. They would see like, oh
Mm,
wow, like Victor literally does whatever like what if it, like whatever I
yeah.
say, and like it's a weird concept for some people. And
Yeah.
like if it's a good idea, boom, let's do it, let's execute it, let's do it now. And
Yeah.
people just get really surprised by that,
Hmm.
because I it comes down to I strip my pride completely to the bone. So there's no like I'm not going to be this ego guy that has all this pride in the world about how I run things. It goes
Yeah.
down to like, hey, I have to humble myself. I have to make it where I'm not better. I'm not better than literally anyone in the world. Like literally, I'm just a normal dude at the end of the day, and it makes it where I become like down to what you said, a much more effective listener, since
Hmm.
I'm not clouded by this ego, clouded by this pride. Because if I was
Yeah.
prideful, I would say, oh, we can only run the business this certain way, and then you're not listening to any other counter arguments at that point. So I've
Yeah.
really learned throughout my life to really strip down that pride and make
Hmm.
it where I actually listen to the other person's perspective, even if it encounters, because perspectives will always have some level of insight that are interesting. It's always good to
Hmm.
understand the counter argument just as a general saying, "Oh, that's why he thinks like that." And
Yeah.
like even if it's horrible, like even if it's a horrible perspective, like it's important to understand saying, "Okay, now I understand why he thinks like that." So,
Yeah.
it's always important to listen, exactly what you were saying. It's so
Yeah.
important to listen to the other side.
Yeah. 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 Perspective is like probably one of the top words I would describe my life with. That it's just like a word that has stuck with me throughout business and personal life and everything in between. It's just like a perspective is so vital.
Yeah.
And it's just something I'm learning more and more as I lead more within our company, is that it's like you've got to understand, take Walmart. You can understand who the Walmart shopper is, but like we aggregate everything. And so it's like
Yeah.
you can understand who maybe like some of the common themes of the majority of the Walmart shopper is,
Yep.
but like even across our team, you have to understand that like everybody came from a different background, whether it's socioeconomic, race, ethnic, whatever it may be. Like
Yeah.
not everyone had the same upbringing. They grew up in
Yep.
different parts of the world or what. And then it's like you've got to understand from a perspective standpoint that like how is this going to be received, and what is the right way to relay information or communicate information or whatever it might be. And that's one that I'm just like so clued in on learning more and more and more about is and honestly, traveling has become one of the biggest areas that I've found. When you travel, you gain perspective just like naturally. You see culture, you see people, you see a different way of doing things. And that's one that I'm like on a continual lifelong journey, I think, of just gaining more and more perspective in hopes that I can understand someone else's shoes. Because that's really the psychological part of selling stuff to people, is it's like understanding their shoes, their motives, their needs, their wants, etc., and what drove them to pick orange versus blue. And it's
Yeah.
like some of that is scientific, Some
Yeah.
of that is actually their favorite color is blue, so they picked blue. And you're like, why is that person? Like there's just so many things that come behind the scenes to make a
And
decision.
it's so funny you say that because so I'm a very disorganized person. I'm very dynamic, very fast thinker. But when it comes to
Mm,
like organization, I hurt like out of the 50 people that were in my company, 43 of them were women. It's because women are way more organized than men. And so
mm,
most of my management was women. So that's how I structured my company. But
hmm,
it was very interesting when I had Pakistanis having underneath them, and they were like, "Hey, I'm not letting a woman be my boss." And there was
hmm.
very interesting international situations there.
Yeah.
And I would say like, "Hey, like within my company, most of the management's going to be women. So if you want to work here, you're going to have to accept that." And I was
Hmm,
just super honest with them. And they eventually like warmed up to each other and it ended up being a very good relationship. And I said like,
hmm.
"Hey, like you also have to communicate to them like they're a real person." Like cuz you
Yeah.
can't like there is not going to be any talking down in my company. It's not going to
Yeah.
happen. So I was very
Hmm.
say, "Hey, if you want to work here and continue to get paid, you're going to have to set your standards of how you communicate to other people." These in in American culture, you have to communicate to
Yeah.
women like they are real people. And I was right off the bat. This is saying this is how you have to communicate with them or you can leave. It's that simple. Like it's there's no in between.
Hmm.
And it ended up being a very, very good collaboration. They ended up warming up to each other, and I knew that
Hmm.
was a difficult conversation in that
Yeah.
person's head because he was
Yeah.
raised with a whole other upbringing. So I understand the perspective. I'm not saying mine is right or his is wrong. I'm not saying that at all. And I was
Yeah.
super upfront with them. I say, I know this is going to be hard for you. I know this is not going to be easy, but
Hmm.
within the dynamics within my company, I need it to be this way. And he was like, "Victor, thank you for understanding me and my
Hmm.
perspective. And I understand yours. I'd be happy to do that for you." So, like,
Hmm.
those are the things that
Yeah.
I go through. I could have just said, "No, you have to respect women. That is the right thing to do." Like,
Yeah.
no, because I understand that he is what he his upbringing was. I understand that.
Hmm.
So I listened to his side, understood it, and I applied it to how I was raised. And I
Hmm.
understood those dynamics, and then he respected me for that, which made it
Hmm.
change his mindset. But if I would have been a douchebag, a douchebag, and just not
Yeah.
listened to the other side, he would have just left, and it would have been not a huge thing.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
you have to listen, strip your pride down. Of like, even if as an American, I had to strip down my pride, understand the other side, and then apply it to me. So it was a
Mm.
huge, huge conversation that he had had within his mind, and I understood that. So like that's one of the
Yeah.
examples I had.
Interesting.
A pretty big one.
Yeah. Yeah. The cultural differences, everything working in there. That's a lot of lines crossed. It's all right. How do we figure this out? Yeah.
Yes, 100%. And then diving into a little bit about Walmart. So I
Hmm.
know you do a little bit about the in-store side and then the e-commerce side. What would you say for someone that is selling a lot on Amazon and trying
Hmm.
to get into Walmart stores? I'd love to
Yeah.
get your thoughts on if it's worth it because I know going in retail is very expensive. Margins are very, very small and things like that. Like,
Yeah.
is it and I know retail stores will sometimes go to you for like with awful offers on purpose, so that way they benefit from everything and they don't the actual brands don't benefit at all. So
Yeah.
I'd love to get your thoughts on how Walmart approaches things and just like if it's worth it, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great question because it's different, and
Yeah.
the funny thing of where we're at in the industry is that but when Walmart bought Jet, it was kind of like a one-to-one. We're trying to directly compete with Amazon, so we're just going to buy an Amazon-esque platform, more or less, and it's like we're just going to compete head to head. And obviously, go to jet.com now, and it's like, okay, well, that didn't work. And so it's interesting because it's you have to look through it almost through the lens of like traditional retail, alongside e-commerce. And while you can sell things on Walmart.com, And we've seen businesses have larger Walmart.com businesses than Amazon businesses.
Yeah.
Pretty unique, pretty unique, we will say. But it's definitely you've got to view it through the lens of, hey, this is a little bit of a hybrid platform. This to just compare Amazon and Walmart.com isn't really fair. Traffic numbers are
Yeah.
very different.
True.
Overall offering is very different. If you look at just the development of the advertising side, the development of FBA versus WFS, like they're just not in the same life stage.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And it's like so many people are trying to launch on Amazon today and are like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, it was a lot easier, honestly. In 2015,
Yeah.
launching on Amazon, like there was some challenges, but it was a lot easier. You
True.
didn't have like the international presence and just like the amount of black hat and just like the competitiveness and an
Yeah.
advertising console now that's like, if you're not a full-time media manager, good luck. You know, it was like one auto campaign, and it's like, all right, I guess I'll just advertise and just turn it on. And so you have to accept that like they're in different life stages and they have different goals as a platform. But there's no doubt within Walmart stores a massive opportunity, particularly in store distribution and gaining store distribution for volume as a company. There's really tactical things of Amazon's going down the route of GS1 compliance and becoming a little bit more in line with international standards as far as barcoding and everything goes.
Yeah.
But to do business with Walmart looks a lot different to do business with Amazon, especially Amazon third party FBA. Very different.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's like this thing called EDI. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, but like
No.
yeah, there's a thing or two to learn. It's just different. But that's where
So,
I think.
oh,
Well,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll round out to say that like if you're going to consider an opportunity on Walmart, I think there's a couple different ways to look at it. You can look at it as a complementary platform to access Walmart Plus shoppers and try to gain maybe a little bit more exposure to your brand or product online. That's one way to look at it. There's not enough traffic on Walmart.com to make a seismic change in the
Yeah.
market, but it definitely can make a change to your business. Um, the other way to look at it is saying, hey, Walmart.com and Walmart holistically can actually be a new avenue and a new channel for me that we may not be selling in today. And it's really a migration from taking the first step into e-commerce and then out of e-commerce and into brick and mortar. And Walmart's honestly probably one of the best retailers to kind of have, aside from maybe Target, that full focus of being in store and online and kind of everywhere in between. And
Mhm.
that's really where the opportunity I think exists with Walmart, is for you to be able to leverage their footprint of stores across America or even internationally, whatever it may be, to then have exposure of your brand in a way that you may not have it today.
That's interesting. Can you go into the process? So I know nothing. I'm all Amazon world. I've
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
I've done Walmart.com, so that's
Yep.
I don't understand that. But anything when it comes to Walmart in store, can you
Yeah.
explain a very fast, quick process? It's I know it's
Mhm.
not going to be a fast or quick process to get into that, but is there a step by step that you
Yeah.
have that says, okay, here's the process you would go through if you were to go from hard goods to, like, being in
Yeah.
the Walmart stores. Do you have
Yeah.
that process?
Yeah. 90 seconds time. Um, so there's this little place in the United States called Bentonville, Arkansas,
Mhm.
and that's where everything begins.
Okay.
But that's where Walmart's based. They in a typical category, and every category is going to look different. Every department looks different across the 50 plus departments that they have. You typically have what they call a modular review. It's called a line review, in which the merchant over that department is reviewing their assortment for the next what they call modular reset. And so that's when they're going up to the shelf, they're resetting all the placements and saying, you get this spot, I'm going to bring in this new item, I'm going to delete this item, whatever it may be. And that process, is something cyclically that happens depending on the department, twice a year, 3 times a year, once every 2 years, whatever it may be. And as a brand that's wanting to launch into Walmart, What it really looks like is bringing a really compelling data story along with product demand story to say, hey, this is the Walmart shopper, this is the demand for this product, and this is a solution that my product could bring to the Walmart shopper, and here's the data in which I have to support it. And that very simply is the process, of which then a merchant will review in typically a line review season for a couple weeks, and they'll go back and they'll go to a place called the layout center, and they will actually sketch out everything on a fake modular and see what fits and what can drive what and what consumer can be satisfied and what growth can be driven. And then they'll actually release decisions, and they will then move forward with resetting that modular to whatever the data may be. But that, in a
Cool.
nutshell, in 90 seconds, is how you do Walmart stores.
And you
Um,
can't choose your placements, I assume, unless you pay more, or like
the,
how does that work? How do you choose your
the
placement?
the fun thing with Walmart is, of all the retailers, they are probably the most or one of the most advanced when it comes to the use of data when it comes to in stores. And so if you go to like a Safeway or an Albertsons or something, you can pay a slotting fee and you can probably get on a shelf. You can give somebody 20 grand and they'll give you a couple stores to be on the shelf for. Within Walmart's system, it is very, very data driven, to the point in which they know how much each facing on a shelf should deliver from a revenue perspective.
Wow.
And so you as a brand, like, you don't have almost any say in it. They do have category advisor teams that really try to sit as a third party unbiased team to help the merchant, understand what's a growing trend, what's big on TikTok, is natural and organic the big new thing, should we put more prominent placement for that, whatever it may be. There's definitely teams to help support that, but the hard thing with Walmart is, like, you really get one good pitch and a lot of data to support it, and some follow up. But at the end of the day, like, it really does come down to a decision by a merchant, to say, hey, this is what the assortment should look like, and this is what's best for the Walmart shopper when they come in the store.
Yeah, luckily we're in a point where that like it used to be only that. It used to be only like in-store retails. Luckily
Yeah,
it's not always deciding to one person and the success of that business off of that one person. Luckily everyone has an opportunity now
yeah,
to sell because it's kind of scary that it all goes down to that one person. And now you can be on Walmart.com, Amazon.com. So it's just we have a lot more opportunities now
yeah,
than we did 30 years ago,
yeah. Even
when
10
none
years
of that
ago.
existed.
Yeah,
Even what?
even 10 years ago,
Oh,
it
yeah.
was like, it always worries me. And it's one of the reasons I love ecom, is just because, more or less, ecom is like, hey, here's the rules. Here's how you get reviews. Here's how you get placement. Here's how you get rank. And, there's obviously a lot of depth to all of that. But at the end of the day, like, the rules are pretty published. And it's like, all right, go. And then it's like everybody can just go and like run and create, and they can make new listings, and they can do whatever, and they can all fight over the same search term to try to get to the top. And that's just
Yeah.
not the case with traditional retail. And there's,
Mhm.
pros and cons to each one, but that's the fun part about Amazon and ecom as a whole, is it's a race to the top, and the only person in the way is yourself.
Yeah.
And so, in Walmart stores, not so much, man. Like, you've got some people you got to get through, and you
Yeah.
may not get what you want because you may not know the people, or you may not have the exposure that that person wants. So,
So,
yeah.
question for you about the consumer differences between Walmart,
Mm.
and other stores. So, for example, my dad is a Walmart shopper. So she shops at Walmart, and then my mom is very like Trader Joe's, Kroger type of shopper,
Yeah.
a little bit more, uppity, I don't know what the word is, but a little bit more peppy in there. So I'd love to get
Mhm.
your perspective on because that's what I hear a lot, why people don't go to Walmart.com,
Yeah.
don't get on the platform. It's kinda like the same conversation about Amazon 5 years ago. It was like, "Oh, we're
Yeah.
too good to be on Amazon.com." It's basically kinda similar to Walmart.com. It's like, "Oh, we're too good to be on Walmart.com." So I'd love to get your thoughts on the difference between a Walmart
Mhm.
either a Walmart retail shopper or a
Yeah.
Walmart.com shopper versus
Mm.
either a traditional retailer or
Mhm.
another website, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the data supports from a Walmart Plus standpoint and just who shops on Walmart.com is it's actually very similar to Amazon from an
Mhm.
affluency standpoint, demographic standpoint, even regional standpoint. And so there's not actually as big of a skew as people would think on the quote unquote Walmart versus Amazon shopper. The big crux of Walmart is obviously the store distribution, and first and foremost and forever, Walmart is a grocery retailer. That's where
Yeah.
all of their volume comes from, and that's where most of the footprint of the store is in grocery. That's where the unit turns are. They just happen to also have, like batting cages and baseball bats and stuff in the store,
Yeah.
which Europeans still think is weird. So maybe they're right. I don't know. Um, but yeah, I think there's the funny thing with Walmart is they do a lot of groupings by their stores.
Mhm.
And I think the misperception is that like you sell to Walmart and then you do business with all of Walmart. And it's like there is regional buyers, there is store managers, there's local assortments in local Walmarts that you can start your own little salsa brand and sell to your individual Walmart. That's like right down the road from you. There's store groupings based off of demographics and like store sets, and there's different modular sizes by metro areas or whatever it may be. And so it's not just as simple as like you get in all the stores immediately and you're always there or you're not. There's a
Yeah.
ton of segmentation that happens
Huh.
along the way. And so in some stores, it's more affluent than Amazon and the Amazon shopper. But I would say in the majority, if you just look at Walmart stores where they are, population of the town in which they exist, it's a pretty rural shopper. The majority of the Walmart shopper is in a rural area. It's just like a statistical fact, at
Mhm.
least from some purchasing power. That's changing as rural areas, a lot more people are moving to cities and the demographics across America changes. But that aspect, I think, as a whole, like there does tend to be a skew towards lower income shoppers, particularly on the grocery side of things. It's not to say you can't do business with Walmart, but to do business with all 4,500 stores, it may not make sense for you to be in every single one of those just because affluency or backgrounds may look different.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's changing though. It definitely is changing, and there's aspects to that Walmart is trying to change, and there's aspects of that just the shopper changing is changing in and of itself.
So I want to get your thoughts on the future of Walmart. Let's just say Walmart.com in this case.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I don't see a lot of reasons right now for someone from that Amazon does pretty much everything amazing. Like they have amazing customer support
Mhm.
for the customer, not the seller. They have amazing customer support for the customer, not the seller. So we know that. Like,
Yeah,
they do pretty much everything right when it comes to customer service, shipping, content, like almost everything Amazon does pretty dang well. And when it comes to Walmart.com, there's not like this like magic unicorn of a feature. Like it's not like,
mhm.
"Oh, we're 50% cheaper," or like, we do
Yeah,
shipping better," or "We do this better, we do this better." Like there's not like one feature that I can think of on top of mind at least that Walmart does better. Maybe like the 2-hour shipping, possibly. The 2-hour
yeah,
that could be something there when it comes to
yeah,
grocery. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Like, what are some
yeah.
advantages why you think people would ever consider switching from Amazon to Walmart.com?
Yeah, I don't know if I would ever lobby for the instance for you to switch,
Mhm.
mainly because I think you should be everywhere.
Yeah,
That if someone's trying to buy your product, I think you should help them buy your product there.
yeah,
But I think some of the advantages of the Walmart platform is it's young. With how young it is comes some nuances. There's things you can do on Walmart, aka you can syndicate your reviews from your direct to consumer site onto Walmart.com. You can't
yeah,
do that on Amazon. Some would argue that it's challenging the reputation and integrity of the marketplace.
yeah.
I think they're correct. I think they're very correct. But
Yeah,
but they're not trying to build Amazon, you know. They're trying to build something that's like maybe a little bit different and maybe not as algorithm based or or whatever it may be. And maybe there's some cheat codes that you can use to kind of get to the front of the line or something like that. And so
Yeah.
I think that the number one thing is that, Walmart.com can act as additional exposure and get you 5 to 10% more in volume for your brand just from a traffic standpoint. But if you are a brand that actually wants to land in their stores, Walmart.com is the best place to start, and start to get some owned data. So then whenever you do go to a line review, you actually have owned data to show. This is Walmart's owned data showing to Walmart about your product is really valuable. And so I think that stays and stands today as the number one reason of why you should consider launching on Walmart. Is if you do want to get into retail or want to be in their stores, pretty much every single merchant is going to ask you, hey, are you on .com? If so, why not? And if not, why not? And it's like, okay, get on Walmart.com. Outside of that, I mean, the big advantage of the Walmart platform is online grocery and just the footprint of the stores. The hard thing right now is online grocery is only restricted to vendors. And so it's like if you're a seller on the platform, you can't get in online grocery.
Yeah.
And that's really where a lot of the volume is. And it's the same thing with Target Pickup, right? Like it's a pretty selected program for you to be able to get into. And so that's the one where I think you can't look at selling on Walmart today as an ROI equation for
Yeah.
today. It's an ROI equation for the next 10 years. And
Yeah.
you're betting more on, who the customer as a retailer will be in 10 years versus today. And it's like, well, if you think Dollar General is going to be the retailer of the future, then start catering to Dollar General.
Yeah.
And it's kind of
Yeah.
the same concept. So I'm like, no, you're probably not going to get a very generous ROI on Walmart or Walmart.com today, but we're not really looking at an ROI today. And if you
Yeah.
looked at Amazon 5-10 years ago, it was like all they're going to do is buy your product and sell it below cost. Like, why would you want to sell
Yeah.
there? But
Yeah.
it looks a lot different today. So that would be kind of the two biggest things I would say is their store footprint can really grow your volume, and it's an investment for tomorrow.
One more thing on my final point is that the biggest hurdle or biggest thing I've seen that the most
Mm-hmm.
headaches caused by Walmart.com is map pricing. That the
Mm,
constant fight between Amazon.com and Walmart.com
yeah,
and the map pricing like counters. I've seen people lose hundreds of thousands of dollars off of
yeah,
that map pricing enforcement and Amazon shutting listings down and things like that.
yeah,
Um, and I want to get your thoughts on that. And like, is there any best practices there? Like, because I think that's the biggest, like, that's probably my biggest hurdle for a reason
yeah,
why I don't necessarily like or recommend it is probably for that reason alone. So I'd love to get your
yeah,
thoughts on that.
yeah. There's a lot of philosophies one can take. We as an agency are a multi-platform agency, and the one reason why we stand by that is because Amazon price matches everywhere. And
Yeah.
so the more we can manage, the more we can control, to which then we can have kind of all tides rise. And
Yeah.
so if we're only managing one platform, to your point, Walmart can totally sink your Amazon business. It can suppress your listings. It can have you price match. It can ruin your volume. It can ruin your profit, whatever it may be. And so that's one where I don't usually like to use the language of like you look at it as the antithesis of Amazon, but at the least, Walmart is a marketplace that anybody can sell, of which Amazon's paying attention to. And so if someone goes on there and starts selling your product on Walmart and Amazon catches wind of it, next thing you know, you as a third party seller on Amazon have your buy box suppressed and search suppressed because they found a lower price in the market. And so, again, whether it's right, wrong, and different, if your product's going to be somewhere, you as the brand should be managing it. And if you don't take it there, someone else can. And that's probably like the biggest point of leverage, where it's like you may not have to actively be really pushing Walmart.com, but if you're not selling your product there, someone might, or someone may already be, and it can really affect your business. And so you obviously can't be everywhere. You can't manage every platform, but the big ones like that could really disrupt maybe your lion's share of your Amazon business. I found it best to have a presence, be investing in that, start to form some kind of relationship. So that way, whenever something does happen and a map violation does occur, you're not just throwing your hands up in the air, just mad at the world. You actually kind of, you have a plan of action, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just so tired of Amazon sellers, and you're one of them. The pure Amazon sellers don't throw their hands up and get angry and complain about the system. They go and figure it out. They figure out how it happened and they fix it. And I think there's honestly more and more sellers on the platform that just like expect the platform to work. And I'm like, dude, it breaks all the time. Like this is just part of the game. And so, yeah, I think it's a little bit more hand-to-hand combat, but if your product's online, I think you should be managing it. So that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with that. So I know we can go on with this for 20 more hours of Walmart.com and everything associated with it and Walmart retail stores, but that's all we have time for today.
Love it.
Jimmy,
Love
please tell them how to find you, where they can find your business. Please tell them all that information.
Yeah, LinkedIn. It's the easiest place. People can't remember two places, so one place. Hop on my LinkedIn, shoot me a message, and that's the easiest place I feel like to get in contact with people these days.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jimmy, for coming on today. And thank you for
Yeah.
everyone for watching. This is the Failures and Wins podcast. Talk to you guys next time. Thanks.